It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160, 101.1 FM. And guess who's on the phone with me, boys and girls? It's Cathy Guisewhite. You know her as the creator of the comic strip Cathy, and you haven't seen Cathy for a lot of years, so it's good to catch up with Cathy Guisewhite and maybe even her alter ego a little bit, Cathy, the comic strip character. Cathy, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You have this wonderful book, 50 Things That Aren't My Fault, essays from the Grownup Years. This is, Cathy enters a new stage of her life, isn't it? This is amazing, the way that you do this.
Well, it turns out we need our senses of humor now at this time of life, even more than we did in our blind dating years. I find myself squashed between, not the sandwich generation, I call it the panini generation, where suddenly I'm caring for aging parents on one hand who don't listen, aging child on the other hand who doesn't listen, and in between I'm squashed in my aging body, which is certainly not listening to anything, and I'm running out of time to do all the stuff I wanted to do. The essays kind of started from that point.
Yeah, and 50 Things That Aren't My Fault. That's the first essay in the book, and it's wonderful, and it sort of sets us up, and we're thinking, this is going to be a romp. But then you knocked me over with the one called Driving Lessons. Driving Lessons is an amazing essay because, man, it reaches right into your heart. I wasn't expecting that at all. This is about you and your mom and dad, isn't it?
It is, and it's about... what I loved about the essays, I mean, it was one thing to try to squash a lot into the four frames of a comic strip, but the essays really gave me the space and freedom to write more completely about things. And in Driving Lessons, it's about literally being in the position I am in life where I'm trying to steer my parents off the road of life and steer my daughter onto the road of life at the same time. And it's that feeling ultimately of power, that powerfully powerless feeling of being in the passenger seat and not being able to do everything I want to do. I liked the combination of the humor of trying to monitor my mother's driving skills in that one. And I love being able to reflect back on how she has literally drove me into my life's work and drove me through all the important things. And now how I'm in we've switched places in the middle of life. We switch lanes.
Well, one of the wonderful things about that and many of the other essays is how poignant it becomes. And I don't know if it's because I'm facing the same issue as you are in terms of parents getting older and having to watch out for them, having to assume the roles that we think it is our duty to assume. You and your sisters do that, me and my brothers and sisters doing that with my mom. But it really becomes a heart struggle, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and it's not funny when it's happening, which is, in all those years of doing the comic strip, I learned to process everything on paper. And that's how this book came about. It wasn't as one book, but it came about as stories. When I just couldn't stand it anymore, I would have to write about it. Like the essay in 50 Things That Aren't My Fault there's an essay called Helicopter Daughter. And that came from a direct experience of visiting my parents. I was the designated daughter who was going to try to force my 90-year-old parents to wear security alert pendants around their necks to keep them safe, when my sisters and I aren't here. Mm-hmm. And how I'm chasing them around the house, trying to get them to wear these pendants and trying to convince 90-year-old parents that they're old enough to need them, seeing all the dangers in the house, just as though I'm watching toddlers and seeing all the curved up rugs, the sharp corners, the high places. It wasn't, I'll say it wasn't funny when it was happening, but on the plane ride home, I mean, literally somewhere over Kansas, I started having a sense of humor about it as I wrote down what really happened and how, it's sad and funny at the same time. That's just where we find ourselves right now.
Yeah, I love in that one because your mom, they finally begrudgingly accept it only because they think they're helping you, doing a favor for you. And she throws a towel over it so it can't watch her.
I mean, I don't make anything up. They literally they finally accepted the pendants, but Mom, they hid them in the sock drawer, and Dad hung his up with his neckties in his closet. And I said, well, Mom, what good is that going to do? And they said, oh, we'll run and get them if there's an emergency.
Amazon comes out today and says, Alexa's listening. And I thought of your mom and dad immediately. Alexa is listening to what's going on in people's homes. And I thought, oh, yeah.
Speaking of Alexa, speaking of Amazon Prime, that's one of the things I note in the book that is not my fault. The fact that Amazon Prime knows me better at this point than 99% of the men who I ever knew in my life.
We're talking about your parents a lot, but your relationships with your daughter and with men and with dating, and basically it's all about your relationship with yourself. It really is. Cathy, the comic strip character, grows up and enters that new stage of life, isn't it?
It is, and it's an important stage. My hope is that 50 Things That Aren't My Fault will feel like a best friend to people like my comic strip did. This time of life can, I think, be very lonely because we feel like we should be able to handle everything and we can't. And when everything starts disappearing, the familiar stores, the familiar, brands, little things like that, things like I should be feeling my most empowered and I can't turn on my TV set without calling tech support, things like that, that I don't recognize myself in my selfies anymore. The familiar things disappear, and then the people start disappearing that we loved and thought we'd be here forever. It can feel a little bit lonely and fragile all of a sudden. And I want people to be able to open my book and say, "Oh, I'm not the only one."
And that's exactly what we do. It is so funny, and yet at times it turns into a tearjerker of a book, and that was really unexpected for me. One of the great themes of the comic strip down through the years was Cathy, the character, going to the store and trying on clothes. You do a lot of that now too with your book here, and the fitness aspects of it all. For instance, the one where you go to the gym and you basically have to talk not about becoming the super sexy goddess you want to become, but instead you have to talk about bone density and things of that nature. It's just not fun sometimes, is it?
It's not. It's offensive. I was finally ready to commit myself to the gym, to the hot, sexy body that I deserve. And now it's, no, they're talking about intestinal health, bone health, like that. And the shopping things I do it's always like a microcosm of what else is going on. Like how blue jeans went from the beautiful, liberating, mind-opening, universe-expanding piece of clothing that my generation created them to be, designed them to be in the 70s, and now they're like these denim girdles that I can't. I've got a stack of 15 of them in my closet, none of which fit, and the horror of trying to find new ones.
The book is called 50 Things That Aren't My Fault. It's by Cathy Guisewhite, who we know is the creator of the Cathy comic strip. One of the wonderful things about the book that we discover is you got this guy named Leo in your life, and what a joy he is.
Leo he's like the perfect guy. He loves me no matter what. He's fantastic. He's there for me. Sometimes a little bit too early in the morning, but he's there for me in every way, shape, or form. So of course he's a dog, and but he's my guy. He's Mr. Right.
Yeah, we sort of get that impression even when he gets you up way too early and wants to play ball. As you have been touring and talking with people and visiting with them about this wonderful book of essays that you've written called 50 Things That Aren't My Fault, I'm sure that you're meeting tons and tons of people who say, that's what I've always felt. I've never been able to put it into words. What's that make you feel like?
It's a little bit surreal and a lot wonderful. I'm greeted at many of my events by women in tears who wrap themselves around it. We wrap ourselves around each other, and they tell me that I helped them get through, the comic strip helped them get through, very, challenging years, and that my book is really giving them a friend now, and it's just unbelievable to me. It's just what a beautiful gift that I've been given a chance to reconnect with people at this time of life through this book. I love it.
Well,
I feel so honored to have got to do it.
One of the great things about it is that guys like me enjoy it just as much. Maybe not from the same perspective. Maybe I don't understand as I should, or maybe you've just helped me to understand a lot better than I have before. Cathy, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Have a wonderful day today.
Thank you, Todd.